Hello, this is Shira, and today we will look at Mars through the individual zodiac signs. Mars. Mars in astrology rules action. It rules the way we express our aggression and how assertive we are. It is our outlook towards what we want and we don't want, and how we will go about getting it. Now, Mars rules the sign of Aries. And just like the sign of Aries, Mars is very outgoing, and Mars is the ruler of impulsiveness and rashness. Mars is also not only how we take action, but how we express ourselves when we are angry, upset, or the way that's obvious or unobvious about how we do things in life. Let's start off with the first sign, which is Aries. Mars in Aries. You could say Mars is at its best in the sign of Aries because Mars rules the sign of Aries. However, Mars in Aries is one who is, yes, rather impulsive. And a Mars in Aries person just goes headlong into all action. Sometimes those would accuse a Mars in Aries of being impulsive and not one to think before they leap or think before they act. Mars is pure energy in the sign of Aries. Mars in Aries, they get to the heart of all matters. You want to have a discussion with a Mars and Aries person? You better have the facts right up front, because sometimes those with Mars in Aries, they don't always want to look at the facts. They just want to act. They are audacious, sometimes gregarious. They are all mind expanding and all out do it. Mars is very, very aggressive in this sign. But hey, a person with Mars in Aries, you gotta admire them. They know what they want and what they don't want. And they get straight to the point, no holds bar. Now, as all planets in the signs, Mars and its rulership and its placement in your birth chart by house and depositor will make a difference. In this case, Mars in Aries, where you have Mars in your birth chart and its house placement, will make a difference on your expressive style. The next sign we will move to is Mars through the sign of Taurus. Now, Mars in the sign of Taurus is very determined. Mars in Taurus is in an earth sign, and earth signs in Mars are very deliberate. They don't take action right away. They kind of like to look at all the facts and assimilate what action is best, because especially in a strong earth sign as Taurus, this Mars likes to think before they act. And Mars in Taurus is sometimes known as, well, the bully. These people will throw their weight around in a way that's very focused and sometimes stubborn. They have a way about them that is very stagnant, and whatever they say goes. You can count on that. But Mars in Taurus, with all their conservatism and all their determined yet sensible focus, are very loyal friends. A Mars in Taurus individual is very solid. They're not one to be very emotional and jump up and down and act impulsively. A Mars in Taurus individual also loves the material. In fact, some would say a Mars in Taurus individual will work very hard at what they want to achieve the better things in life. And a Mars in Taurus, because they are so stubborn, generally becomes very successful because of their strong, stick-it-to-it, very determined attitude. And by all odds, they generally get what they want. They have strong focus and are dogmatic and particularly opinionated in all their ideas. Now, where you have Venus in your chart, because that is the ruler of Taurus, and its sign and house will color your Mars and how your energy is expressed. The next sign we will look at is Mars through the sign of Gemini. Mars in Gemini. Mars in Gemini is an air sign Mars, but Mars through the sign is Gemini, who is, because they are represented by air, rather ideas oriented. Mars through the sign in Gemini is very likely at its most communicative and its most detached. Mars in Gemini is all about ideas. Let's talk, let's chat about what we want, says Mars in Gemini. Now, there is another side to Mars in Gemini, and that is one who can be very devious and very plotting about what they want, since Mars is in the sign of Gemini, and Gemini is very cerebral. They like to think and calculate their next move, but one may not guess this because of Mars expressed through the very communicative and very expressive sign of Gemini. But these people are, in fact, great thinkers. In fact, everything they find attractive about anybody is one who is a great communicator, and like them, they can be rather calculating, and they love to play head games. That may be something very unique in Mars expressed through the energy of Gemini. They are the twins, however, so Mars in the sign of Gemini can be, well, rather up 1 minute and down 1 minute. They are very changeable in their actions, and yes, sometimes their intent. They don't always take the obvious road to action because they are ruled by Gemini. So you have to figure out which road they are on and sometimes how they express their ideas and what their intentions are. But hey, that's just the way Mars in Gemini likes it. And by the way, if you have a great sense of humor and love to have discussions all day long about your goals and ambitions, Mars in Gemini will just love you. Now, Mars in Gemini is ruled by the sign of Mercury. So where you have Mercury in your individual birth chart by sign and by house will color your Mars expressive energy. The next sign we will look at is Mars through the sign of Cancer. Now, Mars in Cancer is ruled by the moon, and it's in a water sign. Now, Mars in the sign of Cancer can be, well, somewhat emotional. Mars in Cancer is one to seek out what makes them feel secure. And a Mars in Cancer individual wants you to feel comfortable and secure. They have generally a close-knit family of friends, and creature comforts are at the top of their list. They are very charming in a very subtle and warm manner. A Mars in Cancer can be a little moody, however. One day they may be the happiest crab in the world, and the next day they are just down in the dumps. You don't know which mood you will get with Mars through the sign of Cancer. Mars in Cancer also, because it is a water sign, is sometimes changeable with reference to their goals and ambitions. They have an unusual way of going about what they want. They are not overly ambitious, and although they do have their goals, a Mars in Cancer person prefers to care or act in a thoughtful manner, or really take in consideration their opponent's feelings, because Mars through the sign of Cancer is very feeling and very considerate. It's kind of an unusual way of expressing their energy. But boy, oh boy, when a Mars in Cancer individual is upset, look out, because a Mars in Cancer becomes very snappy and very short. Their sweet and loving patience will turn into moodiness and quick temper. But, well, they just love to be domesticated, and if you are, the better. The next Mars sign we will move to is Mars through the sign of Leo. Now, Mars in Leo is ruled by the Sun. And a Mars in Leo individual is extremely confident. And like all Mars in fire signs, Mars in Leo gets right to the point. A Mars in Leo of most of the Mars signs is very creative. These people have a natural talent for an eye for artistry and are very creative. They can sew, dance, sing. They just have a particular magnetism that is extremely appealing. And Mars, through the fixed sign of Leo, is very competitive. These people want to be number one, and they will take much action to be at the top. Mars, through the sign of Leo, however, is a very warm-hearted and compassionate individual. However, they do expect loyalty to them. They love people to be on their side, and they have a natural instinct for drumming up people to side with them. They know they're number one. And so therefore, they expect people to join in with their ideas and thoughts on the matter. Mars, through the sign of Leo, has a big heart. So for all their competitive nature, they are very generous and giving with their affection and kindness. Mars naturally has much in the way of, well, fiery charisma, since Mars is in Leo. So, the Mars in Leo in your life may take center attention, but because they are so generous, giving, and loyal, not to mention competitive, they want to be number one in your world and number one in general. Mars, through the sign of Leo, they are ambitious, goal-oriented, and you can bet, like many Mars in the fixed signs, they will be number one in no time. You can trust a Mars in Leo to be your best friend because they have such a strong sense of, well, loyalty, and because they are so caring and magnanimous, they will always be the best friend around. The next sign we will move to is the sign of Mars in Virgo. And again, in this case, where you have the sun, because the sun is ruler of Leo by your sun sign and in your birth chart by house, will color your expressive Mars in Leo energy. Now, with the sign of Virgo, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And Mars, again, is in an earth sign. However, Mars in Virgo is picky. A Mars in Virgo individual doesn't always express their energy in the most obvious way. A Mars in Virgo individual is one to be very fussy about the details. They just love to nitpick and think about their next move. Somewhat like Mars in Gemini, they can be rather calculating. But a Mars in Virgo, you can guarantee, is very perfectionistic and very, yes, fussy. They are the Mars of the Marses that will take their time, look at the details, and decide how they want to act. They don't act quickly. They are very patient and meticulous with all the details. I mean, even what they say takes great thought. They are definitely not an impulsive Mars. And because they are ruled through an earth sign, if you are practical and sensible, you'll win a Mars in Virgo's heart. Because Mars is through the sign of Virgo, this Mars can sometimes suffer from stomach ailments or frustrations because of their, shy way about how they act and focus their energy. So therefore, some elements and ailments of the day may bother this Mars sign. So they have to be very cautious about getting overly locked up into the details and overly cautious about taking action. They are very focused on their ambitions, of course, but their way of going about what they want as far as their goals is just a little slower, but you can count on them to be very deliberate and get the job done in a very perfectionistic manner. Now, where you have Mercury in your horoscope by sign and by house will color this Mars in Virgo and how your energy is expressed. The next Mars we will look at is Mars through the sign of Libra. And Mars through the sign of Libra is an air sign. And Mars is in its detriment through the sign of Libra, its opposite sign. Now, Mars through the sign of Libra likes balance, just like the sign of Libra, the scales. They like to think about the pros and the cons, the ups and downs of a manner before they like to take action. It's kind of different from Mars through the sign of Virgo, where they are a little bit more fastidious about the small things. But Mars in Libra like to look at all angles before they make a balanced and rational decision. They don't like to argue or fight, but because of Libra's natural tendency to debate all angles of the matter, this person may be a little bit combative. They just have to make sure the outcome is going to be well thought of. And if that means debating in order to see the light about an outcome, you can guarantee a Mars through the sign of Libra may do just that. They have a natural knack for all relationships and business dealings because Mars rules the 7th house. And partnerships are very important to a Mars in Libra, whether it be business or whether it be relationships. They love to have a partner in their life because it helps them to balance all the outcomes. Now, Mars in the sign of Libra is also extremely intellectual. They like to connect and relate to each other or to other people in a more detached and cerebral fashion. They are impressed with details, although sometimes they may not mind all the details It helps them to make a quick decision. They are extremely intelligent, and you can count on a Mars to make a very intelligent decision. Now, where you have Venus, since Libra, Mars is ruled by Venus in your horoscope by sign and by house, will color your expressive Mars and Libra style. The next Mars we will move to is through the sign of Scorpio. Now, of all the Mars signs, Mars through the sign of Scorpio is the most intense. And some would say Mars through the sign of Scorpio is rather driven, because Mars in Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto. A Mars in Scorpio individual is sometimes, some would say, rather seething. They don't always take action right away, but they have a very strong code of right and wrong. And if you lay down the red herring to a Mars in Scorpio, look out, because they are ones that do want to even the score with you. However, a Mars in Scorpio individual has a great sense of getting off their anger. They generally, for the most part, get angry and get over it. Believe it or not, somewhat like their fellow Mars in Aries, they can react quickly. But look out, because Mars through the sign of Scorpio can be somewhat ill-tempered. But Mars in a water sign is rather emotional. So sometimes the occasional Mars in Scorpio individual can get lost in their feelings and emotions. And some would say Mars through the sign of Scorpio can be a little bit negative. They have dark moods and sometimes need a little pick-me-up. But Mars in Scorpio is a very driven and deliberate sign about their goals and ambitions. They don't stop till they reach the top. But Mars in Scorpio, like all fixed signs, is great because they have a very focused and determined attitude. They will not give up. Just don't get on their bad side. Now, where you have both Mars and Pluto by sign and by house in your birth chart will color your Mars and Scorpio expressive style. The next Mars we move to is Mars in Sagittarius. Now, Mars in Sagittarius is in a fire sign, and Mars in Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Mars is very enthusiastic through the sign of Sagittarius. These people are very positive and very buoyant. They are goal-oriented, and sometimes some Mars in Sagittarius person can be rather outspoken and very direct. Probably the most direct of all the Mars signs. No nonsense is Mars taking action in the sign of Sagittarius. And Mars through the sign of Sagittarius is one who is rather opinionated. They don't hold back their opinions. And if you disagree with them, they will argue until they make their arrow Sagittarius point. But they are great with zest and they love to travel. Sometimes some would say a Mars and Sagittarius person loves to debate too. They are fun to be around, and some would say a Mars in Sagittarius also has a great sense of humor. Sometimes so much so that Mars can come across as a little too cheery or a little too aggressive in the happy department. But these people are surprisingly very loyal. Yes, they are very buoyant and enthusiastic with all tasks they undertake and with their affection. But, believe it or not, they stick to those that, like them, have strong opinions and who have a wonderful outlook for all their goals, ambitions, and enthusiasm. Now, where you have this Mars through the sign of Sagittarius, in this case, is ruled by Jupiter in your birth chart by sign and by house, will color your Mars in Sagittarius expressive style. The next Mars we will look at is the Mars through the sign of Capricorn. Now, Mars in Capricorn is an earth sign, and Mars is most elevated at its best through the sign of Capricorn. A Mars in Capricorn is very conservative. Of all the Mars energies, Mars in Capricorn is one to, as all earth signs, look at all the details in a very sensible and practical manner. Of all the Mars, Mars in Capricorn is most dogmatic, most goal-oriented, and ambitious. They take their goals and ambitions very serious, and hey, they think that you should too. Mars in Capricorn is your individual that will stick to the job, and they will be the ones who work overtime at the office. They are great about putting forth creative ideas, and they just don't back away when they have action that they must take to get that task completed. Mars in Capricorn, some would say, is a bit material because they have such a need to reach the top of their profession. They sometimes can become very, money-oriented or very materialistic in their desires, because goals and ambitions are the utmost of importance with this Mars sign. They are ruled by Saturn, so as far as their action expressed, they are one to be slow to anger. But as all Mars through the earth signs, once a Mars in Capricorn gets angry, they mean business. They don't mess around. So, you better have your facts in front of them, and you better know what you want or you don't want. Because Mars, through the sign of Capricorn, is an individual. They like the facts, just the facts. And they are one to be rather dogmatic and opinionated with regards to those facts. Now, a Mars in Capricorn individual is also, some would say, a little picky about what they want in their friendships and their relationships. But a Mars in Capricorn individual, although they are very conservative and kind of material, does value loyalty. In fact, there are some that say Mars in Capricorn individuals are the most loyal because sometimes their negative outlook and their perfectionist and ambitious style is also one who believes in the best. Now, where you have, in this case, Saturn in your horoscope, by sign and by house will color your Mars in Capricorn style. Now, the next Mars we move on to is Mars through the sign of Aquarius. And Mars through the sign of Aquarius, again, now is an air sign. And of all the Mars signs, Mars in Aquarius is definitely the most unique. And because Mars is through the sign of Aquarius, you can guarantee they like to be, well, original and add a bit of genius to their action. They like to show you just how different they are. And because it is in an air sign, Mars will not be very obvious with expressing their action. Somewhat like Mars in Gemini, they are rather cerebral and love to talk and discuss ideas. Mars in the sign of Aquarius is rather scientific. So if you've got a scientific mind and you are very unique and creative, the Mars in Aquarius is for you. And Mars in Aquarius, some would say, can act rather unpredictably. Sometimes a Mars in the sign of Aquarius can be a little bit irresponsible. They just like to do what they feel best. They don't always take the straight and narrow, predictable course of action. And no, Mars through the sign of Aquarius, for the most part, although it would make a difference in your chart, is not one to have fits of anger or rage. But look out when they do, because the very unpredictable and erratic Mars in Aquarius can snap and crackle and pop with their action. They can go from extremes to being, well, rather calm, logical, and different and chatty one day and 1 minute, and the next they just snap. They are so unpredictable, but that's the way they like it. A very unique Mars in Aquarius. Because Mars is through an air sign and ruled in this case by Uranus, Their idea of attractiveness or appealing to others is through talks and negotiations. Mars through the sign of Aquarius can be rather logical and rational in their approach to everything. But hey, Mars in Aquarius is rather unique in their style of expression and unique in their style, and they'll be the best friend, since they have many, that you may ever have. Now, because Mars in Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, where you have Uranus in your horoscope, by sign and by house will color this Mars in Aquarius style. Now, the last Mars we will move to is Mars through the sign of Pisces. Now, Mars through the sign of Pisces is a water sign. And Mars through the sign of Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Now, Mars in Pisces is very dreamy and very low-key. A Mars in Pisces person is not one to be very direct many a times with regards to their feelings. They hide their feelings and emotions many times. And a Mars in Pisces individual will leave you one guessing sometimes how they feel. But as many planets through the sign in Pisces, and in this case Mars through the sign of Pisces, this person can be rather intuitive and psychic. This is their reactions. They like to think and think about intuitively what is the best course of action to take in all manners. They rely very heavily on their intuitive gifts. And a Mars in Pisces individual is not just very psychic and intuitive, but they have a natural knack for that which is creative and particularly artistic. Mars in Pisces, of all the signs, is very expressive many a times through the fine and performing arts. They are also very impressionable. There's just something about their sweet and sour way of expressing themselves that is very attractive to others. Mars through the sign of Pisces sometimes, however, is known to be, well, rather negative. Sometimes Mars through the sign of Pisces can give up hope where others, especially the other Mars, are rather goal-oriented or ambitious. This Mars in Pisces would be rather focused on what their feelings and emotions are. This is definitely a Mars that reacts to what their insights and their feelings and emotions feel at the time, and put their emotions and feelings at the top of the list than their goals and ambitions. But again, this is colored by where you have a Mars in Pisces in your birth chart and its depositor, or in this case, ruler of Neptune. But a Mars in Pisces individual has a very deep sympathy and a beautiful heart for suffering and their first thought is compassion and kindness, charity for others. If you'd like to get in touch with me, my contact information is down below. I give one-on-one readings and written reports. Please subscribe to this channel and press the bell notification. Until next time, many, many blessings.